What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering as we dive into the wild world of sports and wagering and all things associated as well. Of course, we got the Final Four to recap here for you. We'll talk about, kind of how we saw things. We'll also, of course, touch on the games, how they actually played out, a few of the, key moments along the way there as well. And that'll be the majority of what we touch on here as we wrap up the college basketball season here for you. SJ, we ended up with what were, I think, some close games to watch. Now, a lot of people like to make it out that it was this, great finish to the tournament. I guess I'm kind of the other opinion, and I will dive into this more, but to me it was more like the final flop because we had a lot of teams that just flat out blew the games when down the stretch.
I think a lot of times, competitive or close gets confused with like good or quality type of, and that, to me, I'm pretty there with you. I don't, and that's we can go into more detail there, but that's always kind of been my deal with college basketball. I enjoy all sports and can definitely get in the tournament, but it's just, I don't know, the quality of play has never been up to what I'd like to see, and then on top of it, I think it's gone even the other way, and we saw it with it's one thing if you see one kind of out of nowhere comeback, but it seemed like on a nightly basis almost we're seeing some abnormal stuff that you want to credit a team for having that resiliency, but at the same time it's like that shouldn't happen no matter no matter who you're playing against. That's more on you than it is them kind of overcoming that deficit.
Yeah, I think when it comes to those big moments, we all would rather, I guess, as purist sports fans, we all would rather see both teams putting their absolute best effort out there on the floor, and somebody making a great play to win the game. And to me, that is not really at all what happened. Now, I'm not taking credit away from the teams that did win those games, and obviously with Florida, who eventually is the champion, because they did have some good moments and they made some good plays. Obviously, you have to have some in order to come away with the title, but it felt like that wasn't what decided it. It was the team that had the lead, just making mistakes and absolutely making the wrong decisions and kind of blowing things down the stretch. Whereas as we want to see the best of the sport come out, then you want both teams kind of just throwing their blows and making things happen, and that just wasn't the way that it ended. And obviously, the very last possession will tell you that to a T, because that was just so anticlimactic to what everybody wants to, I guess, have happen at the end of a ball game. And I don't know, didn't fulfill the pure sports fans' dreams, I guess. All three of the games, really, to me. The two Final Four games and the championship.
I mean, especially with that level of talent for them to but you can't, it's like playground stuff, junior high, middle school type stuff that you can't inbound a ball. It's like, there's nothing you can really find something good about that. To me, it's just, it's nothing that I guess you can dismiss it as whatever, but if you're being honest with yourself, it's just not good basketball.
Yeah. So we'll dive into each game a little bit more on its own merits here in just a little bit. Obviously, as we get rolling, we also like to give a little bit of shout out to a beverage or two along the way to get wet our whistle and those types of things. Now, I'm gonna be fully transparent here. I have been a little bit under the weather here as of late, and I'm just kind of on the mend. So I will not be partaking in a beverage. And actually, I'm doing a little bit of an experiment. So I'm going to be upfront with folks here. I'm staying off the beverages here for just a little hiatus. Me and a buddy are doing this for a little while just to see how it goes. But I'm not giving up the game. I'm just taking a little break here. But I'm still gonna have that moment in the show where I can talk about a beverage of choice. So I kind of thought actually this is a good time of year. Because I would mention some of my kind of like favorite seasonals that come into play this time of year. and maybe some new ones that we're seeing come out that we're anticipating, or ones that I maybe have just recently tried. So that's going to be my contribution here for a few weeks. I'm not gonna fool folks. I could do that because I'm just talking to you, but I'm being real with you here. So yeah, it's actually just water in the mug here for me at the moment. But one that I did have recently that I wanted to give a little shout out to is the new one from Leinenkugels, our fine folks up there in Wisconsin. They've got one out that they just put out as a seasonal called the Liney Lodge Lime. I assume this is going to be a seasonal and not a year-round thing, kind of like in the past with the old summer shandy and sunset wheat back in the day too. Those types of things were just kind of more of a seasonal beer. I know a lot of their stuff has become more available year-round, pretty much just because of the quantity I think that's out there. But I did have a chance to try this one. Wasn't interested and excited just because I always seem to like most of their stuff. And I will say, I enjoyed it. Wouldn't be something, I guess, that, if there's a similar, there are some similar options that I do like a little bit more. Not saying that this wouldn't be a good one to have on hand. I could still see on a hot summer day tipping back quite a few of those Liney Limes, but there are some others of that variety that I've already had before that I will say I think are a little bit better. But it's not bad. It was a good attempt. You can tell that it's a little bit more of the, I don't know, you get a little bit more of that artificial lime vibe, I guess, for me. But still an interesting beer, and one that I did want to try because of the name and what they do, and that's kind of their forte. So anyways, that's what I'd tried recently. SJ, what do you got going on there?
Well, speaking of the summer days that you mentioned, I ran across and we had the the Parch Madness bracket, and the Cerveza was doing pretty good. So I guess maybe it was just on my mind. I saw that Corona. I don't know if they put this one out before. Maybe I missed it. I honestly don't recall seeing it though.
No, I think it's
I know
new.
they've done a few things here and there, but what they're calling the Sun Brew, basically it's just kind of like. I mean, I compare it to like anybody likes to drink a beer mostly. You go to brunch or something, you don't feel like getting started too early, but you want a little bit of a kick there to kickstart your day. It's just like that kind of citrusy beer. I think it's just mostly lime, but I think there's even a little orange in this one too, more than that. But no, it's a good easy drink, good summer day, and I guess help me get through the yard work. This is probably gonna be my go-to lawn mowing beer this spring and summer here. It's a pretty easy drink, and obviously you can't go wrong with a Corona any day. So
yeah. Does sound pretty dangerous. I haven't got my hands on one yet, but yeah, I can see I can see that being a problem on a couple of different days. Maybe sitting on after the lawnmower or sitting on a boat. Those are things that definitely could work out well.
I got a little calcium with that orange juice, so you'll be okay. A little vitamin C.
There you go.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, help you out a little bit. All right, so that's what we're shouting out with beverage wise here today. So let's get into the basketball, and I guess I'll go in order, so to speak, here of when the games happened. I know we're not dwell too much on games that were beyond the one that people were most interested last night, but still going back to the Final Four, and we started with that Auburn Florida contest, and I guess to me that was one that just kind of set the tone for what we were going to see here down the stretch. 79-73 ends up being the final. But Auburn, just I don't know. It just seemed like the decision making there down the stretch was poor. There were a lot of I don't know, untimely turnovers, and then it just seemed like possessions weren't maximized at the right times. I guess they got a little bit ahead of themselves there, and I think part of it too, for a little bit, you felt like they got comfortable because there were points in the game where you really felt like Florida's done. Like there's no way they're coming back in this one. Now we should have maybe expected that a little bit because that's what they have done the entire tournament, and it just continued that trend. But I just felt like Auburn did all the wrong things there down the stretch of the game in order to let that one slip away, and give Florida credit. I guess took advantage of the moment and opportunity, but. I just really thought that, Auburn at the end of the day looked like for the majority of the game the better team, but didn't come away with the victory.
Kind of when you play that, I don't even know how you want to describe it, but even Houston to an extent too, that helter-skelter type of, that's your attacking offense, just get out and kind of create chaos and take advantage of that and utilize that to your strengths. That works, and get you to so far to a point. But both of those teams, and especially I know we're talking about Auburn specifically here, but it's like when you do, because eventually, and when you get to the the end of the line here in the Final Four specifically, you're gonna have to do something in the half court, and you're gonna have to be able to create some offense other than you can't always rely on a steal or a whatever a tip ball, taking a charge or something like that. That's not always going to be there. So that kind of to me that kind of allowed Florida to make this comeback, and at the same time, like you said, like they've made so many. It's not even a good shot, but for Florida, it kind of is, I guess, because it goes in. But a lot of those threes they made, and even just like, when a couple of the dunks and stuff, and it's just like that's enough to spark you right there. And it was almost like you say you can't flip a switch, and usually that's the case, but it seems like for some reason they were able to do that at the right time. So I mean, you probably, I guess in this case, maybe credit them, but again, it's like these comebacks, and this one maybe wasn't so much as egregious as the other two that I'm thinking of, but it was still kind of a lot about like not finishing, and not taking advantage of a situation more to me than it was about somebody like just doing something extraordinary and really like making a statement. It was more about like we can't inbound the ball, we can't make a free throw, we can't get a good shot with 15 seconds on the shot clock. That's the type of things that lose you these games, and also at the same time, it's like, who's their best shooter? Let's go ahead and just leave him open and let him get all the shots he wants. And I know it's not easy to guard some of these guys because the offensive repertoire these days and the way the game's called, both at whatever any level, always favors the offense. But still, it's like, man, I'm double or and I mean, this kind of exaggeration, but even in some cases, tripling somebody. But let somebody else shoot it. Like make 2 or 3 in a row. It's like you got to do something different. You can't just keep letting these people. They're obviously hot. They're not going to miss unless you do something, something different and throw something else on them. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of switch up when it comes to defense.
Yeah, I agree, and you're right. Maybe that one wasn't as egregious as perhaps the other two games that we're going to talk about as far as the mistakes that were made, but still, and that was one thing that I took away right afterwards too. A lot was how do you not contest that shot, or why is this guy wide open? And obviously one guy that was doing a lot of that for Florida was Clayton, and he had 34 and 4 in that game. And I would venture to guess, I don't have the breakdown, but a good whole chunk of that came in the second half. He got going when they had done a pretty good job on him up until that point. So, really, when you look at the shooting stats by the end of the game, Florida gained ground because it was an 8-point lead for Auburn at halftime. And then Florida ends up shooting 47% for the game compared to Auburn's 43%. So, they made it up when they needed to. And obviously did make it up too a little bit in the rebounding category. I see they had a decent edge in that category as well. Turnovers were pretty much close to equal in that, so not necessarily the deciding factor there. But I think it was more so the looks that they were getting, the types of things that you were just willing to concede, that really were surprising down the stretch, especially when that Auburn, that's part of what they hang their hat on. They've got the guys that just kind of be the gritty, get up on you, good, strong player, big player type of guys, and that just didn't plan out for him the rest of that game. So, I thought that was disappointing, I guess, from that Auburn perspective, and it was kind of the start of the team that had the lead, making the huge mistakes in order to not come away with a victory. The other one was obviously much more egregious. We go to that next game. Houston 70, Duke 67, and of course at one point everybody loves the breakdown graph, and I think it got up to 97%. Duke gonna win this game on the win percentage chart, and then absolutely just piss it away at the end of the last couple of minutes. But again, it goes to what you just alluded to earlier, playground stuff. Inbounding the basketball. How do you just absolutely not be able to figure out? And it wasn't just like it was once. It was like 3 or 4 times in a row where they had this problem. I called timeouts a couple of times to try to figure it out. Still couldn't do it. And the thing that was a little bit boggling to me is it was almost like they didn't have some kind of set that were like, oh, we can go to this one and this is going to work. It was just kind of like, oh, we're going to put these guys over here. You run around, you're going to figure it out. Like, it'll be fine. And it wasn't, like, give Houston credit. They were on their ass. But still, like, you got to be able to have, oh, we're going to set this pick here, or this guy drops here, like something that you at least can fall back on. And they just absolutely did not do that multiple times at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean the press break these days, it seems to be like is just like, break toward, try to shake your man a little bit, go back to the ball, and that's about it. Like with the level of athleticism and how talented these players are, is like, I mean, you stick with your old school, cut to the middle and stay out of the corner, off the sidelines and out of the corners, and I think you'll be okay. Just that old diamond press break that everybody that's ever played basketball, fourth grade on up or whatever, you run it. It's the simplest kind of press break that there is. It's kind of the same concept for the trap, like you just you get them in the corners, but the opposite, like the inverse of it. But either way, it's like the only thing that they'll do these days that's different than what you would call like your typical press break, is what I'm speaking of, is put everybody on the other side of the baseline and try to like Hail Mary it. And I don't know if I've ever seen that work. I don't whoever thought that was a good idea or whatever. I don't see where the concept is there. But man, it's like I don't think there's even a press break being run, to me, honestly. And then, like you said, just not being able to get the ball in bounds is just it's very it kind of makes you scratch your head. It's like, well, what are you doing in practice? You just like playing pickup the whole time and scrimmaging. I mean, I don't know how you don't have anything drawn up. And as someone who, how long did he obviously played at Duke, how Shire, how many how many reps has he had breaking presses? I'm thinking he might have got a cup of coffee in the NBA or overseas, play a little pro ball. It's like, you got to be able to, okay, this isn't working. Let's come up with something else. Do some coaching, because I know you got plenty of talent, but you do have to coach them at some point. And that was like type of thing maybe 10, 15 years ago. You see like Duke would do that to somebody else, but to see them getting done to them, I'm sure for some people that was kind of like some little poetic justice there. But at the same time, it's all like, I mean, this isn't like you're coming back from 11 points and you're playing against Chattanooga or something, or something like that, or against you William and Mary has you on the ropes and you pull something out of your backside to hold them off in a December game. Now this was all the marbles on the line and you were the favorite, and you pretty much, how can you not say that game was over at that point? You look at Houston, they're reaching across the inbounds line, getting a technical foul. Yeah. If not for that, Duke wouldn't have scored in that last 1:15 or whatever it was. Like, to allow 11 points in 1 minute is, I mean, you can't even do that like on freaking NBA Jam, back in the day when you had the 4-point shots. I don't even know. I honestly, I was kind of, I've been pulling for Houston. I kind of want to see, to me, it's still an underdog story. I know they've been a good program, but so I was pulling for them. But at the same time, just like, you almost like laughing, like, how is this happening? You could not, it wasn't, you're watching it and you're like, this is like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. Because people say all the time, unbelievable. It's like, freaking everyone's favorite thing to say, but this literally was unbelievable. Like, how the hell does this happen?
Yeah. I mean, my whole thought the whole time as I'm watching it, even as things started to go wrong a little bit, I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, that was really stupid, but there's still no way they're going to lose here. I mean, you just never, to me, I never felt like, oh, they're actually going to lose the game. Not until that last, the steal in the bucket. I never felt like that was going to happen. I mean, you're up 9 with 2 minutes to go. They were up 6 with 46 seconds left to go in the game. I mean, all you got to do is essentially just take care of the ball. I mean, even if you don't make your free throws at that point, as long as you burn some clock, you're probably still going to win. Like, that's crazy. Like, and even if you're, think you hope you go 1 for 2, most of the time, at least. Yeah. You're going 1 for 2, fine. That you still win the game. But yeah, they couldn't even do that. I mean, losing a possession and then, losing points that way. I will say the only thing that I thought was bad as far as the whole weekend was concerned, as far as a bad call that shouldn't probably have taken place, was the call on flag where Houston got to shoot the free throws to go ahead in the game. They called the reach over, and it, like, He really didn't reach over the guy. I mean, the guy was pushing back on him, trying to box out. He reaches his arm up to try to get it. Didn't, to me, it wasn't like he was pushing him out of the way or coming right over his shoulder or anything. I thought that was a really bad call. But again, at the end of the day, like the types of mistakes that they made, that's what cost them the game. It wasn't necessarily that. So you never like to point at one thing to say that was the issue. But yeah, the other mistakes, and then also the fact that you just like you said, it just seemed like they were just like totally lost. Like, what do we do now? I don't know how you're in that position. They've been in games like that during the year, so it's just like kind of mind-boggling. And especially like you said, for a program like that usually is ready for that moment. Now, granted, it's a little bit different story this year because they do have some younger players compared to a lot of teams, and maybe that was led to part of the issue there for them. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure for a lot of people watching, it was a little bit of poetic justice. They love to see Duke, go down, kind of thing, and that's fine. I just thought, for the way that the game had played out up until that point, it was just like you really thought that they were the better team, and they had played the game, considerably better than Houston had, especially offensively. I mean, there was a while there it was like, Houston, what are you going to do to score? You've got to be able to score to keep up with them, and they're not going to do it. And then what helps you do that? Duke doesn't score for like 7 minutes. So, yeah, I mean, that was a big part of it, too. I guess it started way before that. It got hairy later, but they had such a big lead that they didn't score for that long and still looked like they were going to win the game. So that was what was so wild about it to me. It's just that stark contrast from what you normally see in a game. It's kind of wild and crazy to see. And like you said, I just pretty much in shock at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I still expected them to hold on even down the stretch, but I guess that 5 points, like we said, was a little too high. And then also, I believe we said under 70, keep them under there if they wanted to have a chance to win. So they were right around both of those marks. So that was kind of the recipe for success, and they were able to do that. But it still comes down to the end of more of kind of, I mean, lost the game more than they won it, but they had to make the plays to still win it. So, I mean, gives us something to talk about. I can't even imagine that, kind of just that's going to stick with you for a while. And if for someone, especially that's probably like a one and doneer, that's your your only your one season that's your I guess lasting memory. So that'd be kind of a tough way to go down on top of everything. It's like, I mean, going back to the inbound thing, it's just, man, having someone set a pick from running the ball, lob it up and let him jump him and catch it. He's gonna get fouled. Like, come on, like, and with the over the back thing, for some reason that's got to be it's become like such a kind of depends when it happens type of call, almost like a pass interference these days. It's like, sometimes during the game they're like, you can jump over him, it's okay. But then when it's like a critical play, it's like, nope, you gotta maintain verticality. Like, they just come up with all this bullshit. It gets so annoying. I'm like, man, the rule is the rule. It is what it is. Either it's a foul or it's not. And I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't think you can reach over somebody. I think you can still go up for the ball, though. And if someone's backing into you, that's not necessarily reaching over them. But it's gotten to be one of those. I don't know. I guess just more of too much of an opinionated call, which that could be probably said for a lot of things in sports. But I don't get how it changes depending on the time of the game, and that should never be for any call.
Well, and that's the other. I guess that brings up like a specific play. This is not focusing on the game, so to speak, but I do find it very interesting this year. This is, I guess, the first time that I've really heard it like called out a lot by announcers, and then when I paid attention, that you see teams actively doing this, but the whole squeeze thing, on the free throw line, they're always now everybody apparently teaches both guys to squeeze the middle guy so that they have pretty much they lose their ability to move around and go get the ball. That's kind of the idea. But when you're doing that, you're creating obviously a lot of contact between a lot of different guys. So it does change that scenario to me a little bit too. It's, I mean, you may be just trying to jump straight in the air, and if somebody's got their butt into you from both directions, who knows where your body's going? Like, sometimes that's not your fault. So the other thing I think that's wild about that too, is that they don't really box out the shooter anymore either when they're doing that. So I don't know. To me, that's a weird scenario. Like, yeah, it does work out, I think, for the defensive rebounding team, so to speak, most of the time. but it's such a strange look to me compared to what, obviously we grew up with.
Yeah, I don't. It's kind of like when they changed the punting formation. Like, why? That's just like what needed to be changed. To me, it's just like you're giving yourself more opportunities for like something bad to happen rather than you are like, that, and you have a man advantage, as the defensive team on the line to begin
Yeah.
with. So I mean, it doesn't really, you maybe their best rebounder, you double team, you double team him, you pinch or you squeeze him like you said, and then you get one guy takes the shooter and the other guy got the other guy mano a mano. So
Hmm.
I don't know if boxing out is just like it might just be a lost art these
Yeah,
days.
it could
You
be.
don't,
Yeah.
see. I mean, there's lots still good rebounding teams, but that might be because the most teams we talk about that are good at it are the offensive rebounding instead of the other side of the ball. When we talked about Houston and some of the other teams that can really crash the boards, even a Texas Tech was kind of made their hay doing that this season.
Yeah, that's very true. The one last point I did want to bring up about that game in particular, the Houston Duke contest, is you mentioned flag. Obviously, hurts to have that foul call, but then also, he had the opportunity. He did get the ball and had a chance to make the shot to put him back up again, and he comes up short on it. And that's one of those scenarios too where you kind of like, I guess in my mind, I kind of felt like, oh, here he's going to make this play. This is the guy that everybody's been, on all year. He's been great all game at creating space and knocking down shots. You just kind of expected him to do it. Now, I know that's putting a hell of a lot of expectations and pressure on one player to make that one play, but you just felt like maybe, okay, this is this kid's moment because it just feels like he's that kind of player, but didn't go down for him. So, I mean, that's got to be a little bit doubly, in his mind, disappointing for the way that the game ended.
Yeah, that probably got a little overshadowed just because of the ending, and the way it actually went down. But it got, I mean, decent shot. But I mean, that's who you want to shoot the ball. But I mean, you got to go to the rim. I understand. Like you can't really question as much point. The numbers he's put up this year. You want him to shoot it, and that's who should have the ball. But a fadeaway and.
Yeah.
That's just he's going to probably get a foul called if he goes to the hoop more likely than not, just because they're either going to foul him or he's going to get a superstar call, which that's fine. Everybody gets them. It's no big deal. But definitely didn't like the fadeaway thing. If you want to take that little jumper, that's fine. But go into the defense because you're probably going to get the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, wild ending there for sure. So that ends up with I guess in my mind, the two teams I didn't think were going to be in the championship, and they're there. So Florida and Houston last night. And yeah, I mean, talk about wild scenarios and endings. We got much more of that in this final hurrah. And again, I just feel like, man, Houston had so much control of this game for such a long time, and they were doing all the things that you thought that they needed to do to win as well, because they were, slowing it down. Griming it up like they do defensively, making the other team's best player not have a good game. Clayton didn't have a bucket until the friggin' last 2 minutes of the game or whatever. And they still, and still find a way that have Florida come creeping back around later on. And again, I thought it was too. There were a lot of those decisions, like what kind of shot are you going to take here down the stretch? How much time are you making sure that you're using? Felt like there wasn't a lot of that discipline for Houston down the stretch of the game when they needed it, and that allowed Florida just to kind of hang around. And we've all seen what they've been able to do with that scenario every time they've had it this season. And then here we go again. Again, there were a couple of moments there late, almost just like that previous one with Houston Duke, where I was just kind of like in shock. Like, did that really just happen? Did you really just give up that possession? But just a ton of mistakes. And I guess what was most shocking about, well, I guess most disappointing for them is that they didn't look like themselves down the stretch of the game. They didn't play their game at the end of the game. All they needed to do, just like, other teams we've talked about, was kind of lock themselves down, play your solid, strong defense, run some clock, try to get to the rim. Obviously, they're such a great rebounding team. Anytime you're getting it somewhat close and putting it up, you're likely to get an offensive board here and there. but they just didn't give themselves those opportunities. I felt like down the stretch of the game.
All these teams are in the same boat, so it's not, an excuse, but it is something that people I think don't consider sometimes is the fact that it is a lot of basketball in a short amount of time against, different opponents. It's quick turnarounds in some cases, and of course now in the Final Four, you're playing the best of the best. At least that's what we have to believe. They've gotten to this point, so that's something to consider. Sometimes you just run out of juice, and maybe that was the case. But I mean, just that game was ugly. There's nothing good about it. Like it was hard to watch. I mean, and then to go to the ending of it, it's like I get you want to go for the win and all that, but I mean, you scored 63 points in this game. You shot 34% from the field and then 24% from three, and then you want to try to go for three to win it. It just wasn't your night to shoot the ball. And I don't, hate. In most cases, I kind of like that because to me, and I guess it depends on your perspective, but I kind of thought Florida was definitely building the momentum, like going down the stretch. So it's one of those situations where let's get them out of here and get the win now, because if we do just tie it and go to overtime, we might be running out. Maybe they were thinking the same way I am. They're kind of on fumes here and they're running out of juice. Because that's like the first thing anybody when that played basketball and I was like, when you're not shooting well, a lot of times it's because you're tired. Your legs are just gone, and that's usually kind of the result is a poor shooting night. And neither team really shot well, so you got to figure maybe both of them are kind of in that same boat there. So yeah, overall ugly, and then that not so much the decision at the end, but the execution of it was real bad.
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because early on in the game, I kept getting texts from my dad because he was going to be the big benefactor in our pool if Houston did come out on top. So of course he was rooting very hard for the Cougars, which he normally would do anyways because he's definitely one of those conference guys. He loves the Big 12, so he'll root for all of them. I'm sometimes like that, but not always.
Depends on the team.
Yeah, but he was like. He kept texting me, "Why are you shooting threes? Don't shoot threes. Get the ball inside." And he wasn't wrong. Like they had so much success early in the game getting it down low. I mean, even players that you really hadn't heard a lot of prior in the tournament, like that Francis guy, for example. I mean, he wasn't like a huge factor in many of the other games they played, but he dominating early on. Like, get him the ball, fine. If you're making it down in there and you're giving yourselves chances, that's the way to go. And it did feel like they were kind of pressing a little bit, like, oh, we got to make some shots too, which, I told him at half, I was like, well, they're going to have to make some of those to win this game. Like, I get that, but it can't be forced either. Those would just have to be the ones that just come, like that inside out game perhaps where you get an open look because somebody dumped it back out. That's when you needed to take those threes. And there were a few times where they came down and chucked up some early ones in the clock. And it's just like, yeah, this isn't you, and it's not your night to do it. So why are you going there? And had they done that maybe a little bit more earlier in the game, just stuck to that inside game plan, I think maybe that would have been enough to help them stave things off down the stretch, and they just didn't do it.
Well, I'm not trying to like crap on them too much, but at the same time, it's just kind of, it makes you think that a team that the whole tournament has been, been ballyhooed about like, oh, they're so disciplined and they make the right choice always, and they're running miles in the summer like nobody else is doing that or whatever. And of course, I said I was rooting for Ireland to win, but it's like, dude, it's all, it's a game to game thing, especially when it comes to like college age kids playing sports. It's like you don't know what you're gonna get one day from the next. So that's why I just like that kind of stuff. Just kind of like, it's just really stupid to kind of be like, oh, this is, this put to, throw kind of a wide net over there like that, because it's just like they've done it for 2 games doesn't mean they can do it, whatever. And they had a good record. And I know the coach had some pretty funny quotes about, their conference record. When you say them play Sasquatch State or something like that, is that what you said? Yeah. Or like Poodle, something about
Toy Poodle League. Yeah.
So that was kind of funny. But honestly, I don't know why people started liking him all of a sudden. I don't know. He kind of seems like a freaking a-hole to me, but whatever. I mean, he's had success, so you can credit him for that. But as far as like the his demeanor and stuff, I don't find a draw to that where like, oh, this guy seems like a nice guy, I'd like to have dinner with him. Mm-hmm. And probably but the exact opposite. But either way, back to the game, it's just like it was just funny to me how it was like, oh, this team is the all discipline, and all of a sudden that goes out the window, because even at the end, okay, yeah, you didn't get the shot off it, and you don't want to like obviously drop the ball and he knows he can't touch it, but you're better off touching it, because then it stops the clock. You can foul him, make him shoot free throws, and you get another chance. Like I mean, so that would be the better decision, not to sit there and cry about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's just like it's all, you know, it's we don't know how you're going to react in the moment. For the most part, they had done a good job of in the pressure situations doing, you know, the smart thing, but they weren't able to do that last night, and they wouldn't even have been in that situation if they would just kept stick to what you're doing. But football, basketball, baseball, hockey, tennis, whatever, list all those sports. How many times do we just come on here and say like, it's working, why are you doing something different? But
Mm-hmm.
teams, individuals, for some reason they gotta, you know, overthink things, and you know, obviously it's a high pressure situation, so that factors in. But man, if you getting to the hoop at will, it doesn't make sense to stop. But same thing, we see these football teams just running the ball down the other team's throat, and they're like, let's do a reverse, or let's do a flea flicker, or let's, you know, just start chucking it around the yard. So
Mm-hmm.
if people had the answer to that, they'd probably be, you know, have a lot of money, because they could, you know, sell some type of book or some type of, you know, go around and do those motivational speech type things.
Yeah, and obviously we didn't, you know, specifically just talk about that last possession. You've talked about moments of it here already, but yeah, like you have the ball with plenty of time. You know, you have an opportunity to still win the game. They gave you the opportunity to still win the game because they didn't make their free throws.
And then what was that play even? Like, just like you had two guys standing there, and then like they're like, I don't know what to do. Like they had to have said like, okay, that your first option is not there. Get to the hoop, drive to the hoop, get a foul, draw some contact. No, let's just stand around. And I mean, I know he's probably one of their better shooters at Sharp, but I don't know if that was necessarily. Maybe it was a third or fourth option. I don't, or if he just happened to come around.
Yeah,
you know, I don't know what the play. None of us do, except for who was in the huddle. Well, that was just like total cluster. You know what?
Yeah. I mean, like they start dribbling to the side, and then of course it gets like the two guys are there still on them. Like, they played great defense. I mean, give Florida credit; they were right on them, so they didn't know where to go. And then it's like, oh yeah, now what do I do with it? I'm stuck here in this corner. I'm waiting for somebody to curl off the, you know, back around the screen or something. I think probably the intention was try to get it to Cryer at some point to see if he could do something with it. But then, yeah, then it ends up just kind of being reversed over there to Sharp. And I think he just felt like with the time barreling down that he had to try to jack it immediately, which hindsight, I think if he had been aware, he probably didn't need to. You give a pump fake there, and two things.
Open.
Yeah, either wide open shot, or you can pull the a-hole basketball move and lean into the guy flying into you and get the foul call. One of those two things was going to happen if you just went for the pump fake instead of the immediate shot. And you know, that was first of the, I guess, mental mistakes in that scenario. But then, yeah, you go up in the air, and for the second time in the weekend, we see somebody dribble the ball after they're up in the air, like, oh, now I can do something with it. The first time, the guy didn't even think about it and lost possession because of that. And this time, like you said, maybe it would have been the better decision, to not. I mean, he had the awareness that, oh, crap, I did that. I can't touch it again. But he should have just done that because, then the clock just pissed away because nobody could get to it fast enough to make anything happen. But just like, it was like a multitude of mental mistakes, and like you said, a team that doesn't supposedly do that, and you can count probably 4 or 5 in that one possession. And as a team, as a fan, not probably a worse feeling in the world that you didn't give yourself a chance. Like, you're okay with missing a shot. That still sucks. But you didn't even get one up. Like, that has to just be heartbreaking, and especially in a moment like that where you're talking about ultimate prize on the line.
I mean, you're better off, you could live with at least you chuck about half quarter, or, even if he tries to draw the contact and doesn't get a foul called, at least you seem to make an attempt to try to win the game. But that's you might as well just stood out of bounds and took a 5-second violation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's about as good. You didn't do anything much more than that to give yourself a chance to win. So, and in that, I mean, to do that, it's just you would have thought there was 0.7 on the clock or something like that, or a one point, just a little over 1 second, I guess, because you'd have to get a shot off, so it couldn't be more than a second. But either way, they had what? Isn't there at least 10 seconds? Or is there more? There was
than 14 seconds.
I think. That's the thing I was gonna say. I was thinking it was over 10 seconds. I mean, even tens. That's.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have to push it up the floor. They just were trying to get a shot.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You put the hoop, and even if you don't get a foul and you miss it, you still got 6 or 7 seconds left. You can foul them, and get at least one per possession. Like you,
Hmm.
I don't dribbling the timeout. I never get that either, and I don't think they were necessarily doing that, but it just
No.
ended up being that because they couldn't run the play. They like you said, Florida played damn good defense on the play, but there's
Hmm.
still no reason to not get a shot up.
Yeah. Well, and it was pointed out too immediately by the crew, like part of what Houston hangs their hat on is getting offensive rebounds. So the first thing you want to do is try to get a shot up. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you want it to be a good one, but still, even if it isn't great, you're still got odds that you can get a bucket to, at least tie this thing if that's what happened. And they didn't even, not to get the first opportunity, and then you eliminate the even a remote possibility that the second chance comes. Just, I don't know, that's just so wild. I don't
and
know.
and doing my best to not in overreaction, but I'm like, man, part of me thinks like that's just maybe they're the new Gonzaga. They're good enough to kind of that hump, that hurdle is like just hard to overcome. From I'm still gonna call them, the mid major. I know they're in a big
Hmm.
conference now, but they've always been, especially when you talk about big schools, you're not talking about enrollment. We're talking money. That's what it is. The
Hmm.
athletic budget that determines the size of a school, not necessarily how many students you have eating in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
So I mean that's what I'm looking at. Like, but either way, it's hard to get over that hump, and I don't know, maybe they're just kind of they've maxed out and then some. I think like to have the success they've had over the last few years. Like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just it's hard to beat those teams that are used to being there. And Florida, I mean, I know they've probably mostly been known as football school, but honestly, their basketball teams
Yeah.
been way more
Better.
success as when they find them. And even when they won it the last couple of times, there it's like they just have that. They have to have that like ugly, gross game to
Hmm.
win it, and they somehow do it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's in the 50s or 60s when they won when they went back to back with Noah and Horford and those guys.
Hmm. Yeah, you're right. And that's the other thing too that I guess I kind of thought during the game. Because sometimes you look like, I don't know. I guess as a fan of another team, I try to have like a little check myself perspective or whatever. When I'm watching towards the end, and you start looking at these teams like roster wise, and what guys do they have where, what positions, and I'm looking at and I'm thinking, yeah, would I have loved my team to go on a run? And I thought we had a really good roster this year. I'm looking at Houston. It's like, yeah, not as good as these guys. Like they got guys that are check all the right boxes. The way they play. Obviously, their depth showed through a little bit because, like I said, some guys started showing up that you really didn't even hear about much until that game. And I guess the same was really true for Florida. Obviously, I don't watch their league, so I don't know as much about them. But that was what I guess looking at the two, to me, I'm like, I know a lot more of these guys on Houston. I think they're probably like a little bit more skilled at a lot of positions to be able to win this thing. And that's probably yet what has to be even more disappointing if you are a fan of the squad. And maybe you're right. Maybe that's that little bit of that, mental, block or hurdle that they may or may not ever cross. Obviously you felt kind of bad for them last season when they had the shed situation. You have a great point guard, probably best player a lot of people considered in the country, and he goes down with an injury before the tournament starts. So obviously you lose out on that opportunity. And for them to be right back there is just like, wow, they did the right things. They got some good guys, but yeah, you got to walk away feeling like, what do we got to do, in order to actually win this damn thing? Because it feels like if you ain't doing it with that team and the way that they played, I don't know that you're going to be able to at a school like that, like you said.
I do still think there's a lot of it is overlooked because you want the best talent you can get, and that's understandable. But just the fitting the pieces together is still like the art of it all, and that's where it comes in. Because you look at the teams that we're in, even at the end there, it's other than maybe like I guess Duke and Auburn's pretty hard with the transfer game too. Everybody is these days, but more so than most. They're kind of trying to buy success, but I still think they're, even though people want to complain about it and saying it's broken and the system's broke, there's still, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's still a team game. You got to
Mm-hmm.
find the right pieces. You can't have, of course you would want it, but having four or five, 5-star recruits, it's not always going to work because how are they all going to get their shots?
Hmm.
Someone's going to have to do the rebounding and play the defense, and also just the team chemistry itself has to be there. So I think there's still something to be said for the coaching part of it is blending the roster, that part of the coaching part. Now the X's and O's, I think that can use some work across the board, and we've seen it. And that's not even an opinion. We saw play out. Oh God, 6, 7, 8 times here in the last, probably since the Sweet 16 on. And if we went beyond that, we really could magnifying glass to some of these games that McNeese almost blew a lead. One of the bigger upsets in the tournament, they almost blew a 15, 20 point lead. So it started from the first day and went all the way through. So that part of it could use some help, but I still think there is some credit goes to all these coaches for still finding that blend of talent and then keeping that team together through a tough couple of weeks of I guess not so much tough, but just grueling. That's a lot of basketball in a short amount of time, like I said before.
Yeah, that is very true, and maybe it's more so too about like you said, not necessarily the dudes, but the other guys, the guys that are coming off the bench, the role player type guys. How do they fit in, and how much can they contribute? That maybe makes a difference for a lot of these teams, and we did see that, I think, a little bit. For especially on Florida's end, a lot of guys that did contribute at different times. When your star can go without scoring for a majority of the game and you still find a way to win the national championship, yeah, you got some guys that can fill the role a little bit. So it was interesting. The other thing you brought up earlier or you kind of alluded to, I guess, with talking about Samson, it it always kills me, I guess, when it comes to college athletics in general. It's like we're always such a Johnny come lately mindset, like we forget that like some of these guys, like they did some not really great things but in their past, like, and we're just like, oh, he's great, he's a great coach, he's a great guy, like, I mean, dude had some serious violation. We didn't know he was going to coach again. And I mean, yeah, great, whatever, it worked out for him. The guy on the other sideline had some bad things swirling around his head before the season even started. And I'm not going to like get into that because I guess it was supposedly to be unfounded. But yeah, now everybody, I'm sure, on campus thinks he's the greatest guy in the world. Like, it's kind of funny how we forget about those things.
Yeah, I mean, especially Samson deal with the violations. Like, well, whether you thought it was, overreach or whatever, it's a violation of the rules, and it was, clear as day, and some of these coaches don't just, I don't know if like win a couple games and it's like, they're not such a bad guy after all. So that's an odd mindset to have. And it's also, pick and choose too, because certain guys will never get that, that type of,
pass,
leash or that. Yeah, they won't get the free pass. So you say that compared to some of the other guys. So yeah, I guess whoever shares the same agent or golfs at the same club, then I guess that'll get you in the good graces. But and of course, I'm sure they were trying to, Nance over there is a Houston alum, and the old coworkers with CBS, so I'm sure he was greasing their palms to say nice things about his coach. So and. Hey, speaking of alums, I thought that was rather interesting when they wouldn't let Olajuwon up on the stage there. I think that was for like I understand like it's been a while since he played, but come on, I don't think there's just some random 7-foot dude saying let me up there. Just, size, that should give you if you're not a basketball historian. I know he looks a little different, but that should let it's just not some random dude coming up trying to hang out there being not many 7-footers walking around these days.
Yeah. Well, I guarantee the other guy that was there with him or whatever was talking to the guy who was like, hey, this is Hakeem Olajuwon, right? Like, pretty easy to figure out. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right. That was wild. I don't know how they ever, like, what conclusion they came to there, but I thought it was funny when they were doing the, like, early on crowd stuff on championship night. They showed him, like, prime courtside seat scenario. I'm like, I think they're trying to make up for their misgivings here. Making sure.
Yeah, they were trying to suck up because I think he's sitting by Wembanyama or something. And then like, I mean, and you're even in the same state where he played too. I mean, it's a couple hours.
Yeah, right next door
to the northwest there a little bit. So it's like if maybe somebody might not know, and if you're playing this in Seattle or something, but it's like, man, he literally like was like friggin' basketball royalty in that state for how long? Like, come on.
Yeah, he's the reason your program's on the map in the first place.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say too that there is something also on the other end of like we don't have to let everybody and their brother
Oh,
be a part of these
but
things.
they do. So
Yeah.
why? What's one more? That
Yeah.
you know, that's that would be it would be something if it's just the team, but there's at least 60 other people up there that shouldn't be. So
Yeah.
at least let one that should be.
Yeah. Or if you're letting a broadcaster who happened to play a couple rounds of golf at your school up there, yeah, you should probably let the dude that led the basketball program to prominence up on the floor too. That make a lot of sense. Yeah, I was kind of hoping Houston was gonna win so I could see, you know, once he got up there how he
What happened? Yeah, that was kind of the only thing we got to see was that tall bastard again for Florida cutting the net without using the ladder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny to see, but I was just, you know, kind of talking, you know, whatever the side here with someone. I was like, can you imagine us like going through life being that tall? Like, you can't just sit in this chair we're sitting in, and you can't just buy a regular car.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I understand he's gonna have the means to probably do so because he'll probably play pro somewhere, get a, you know, whatever, make enough money to like, you know, support the lifestyle. At least we hope so, unless he has a bad injury. But I mean, it's like just existing in society would be such a, you know, such a chore. It's, we can't just go buy a bed at, you know, where at Sealy you got to, you know, get the custom models, and you can't just sit, you know, like that's got to be a pain. But I mean, whatever, you know, it is what it is. I just like, I always think maybe that's just me. I think something like, good God, can you imagine having to find pants?
Yeah. Yeah. You probably have to have a custom tailor. I don't know who the hell, how the hell you solve that problem.
Be ready for a flood everywhere he goes.
Yeah. Freaking crazy stuff. Yeah, and I mean, does he have to sign a waiver with Werner Ladders, or like, you know, you got to be a little pissed. Like, damn it, this guy didn't even need my ladder. Pretty funny stuff.
Give him like a little step stool instead or something.
Yeah,
there
you go. Yeah, I like how he did it, and then he just like reaches up there and slaps the scissors back in the hole. Like, okay, yeah, here, this next guy.
If he ever does a layup in a game, you're off the damn team. Like, seriously, bro. Like, you have no excuse now.
Yeah. Crazy stuff. One last thing too that I did want to mention about that game, and I guess I don't want to. I hate like, you know, picking out individuals or whatever, but as far as somebody else over the weekend, other than like, you know, how bad Flag had to feel after their game, freaking Sharp after the game for Houston, like those two possessions, man, like you just got to be killing yourself, because he had the one where he's driving and it got knocked off of his knee out of bounds, and when they had chance to, you know, still be in good shape there, and then that last one where you jump and then you drop the ball, and then, you know, obviously, you know, the game ends. There was a lot made about, you know, Clayton coming over and saying something to him, but you see that a lot anymore. I think guys are pretty good about that, and whether or not, you know, for the guy that's on the floor, probably doesn't mean jack in the moment. Yeah, he'll appreciate it later on, I'm sure. But like when you're in that mindset, like anything anybody's going to say to you is not going to make you feel 1 ounce better. And I did feel terrible for him. But in the first one too, what sucked about it was I did think it was a stupid decision to try to force drive where he was going. But it was just a hell of a reach by Martin to get over there and get his hand on the ball, and it just so happens to bounce off your knee. Like, that's the kind of shit that just kills you as a basketball player. Like, those are the plays that you wish you always had back, but you had not a whole hell of a lot of control over.
I mean, honestly, like, it's probably not wise to go up to somebody in that state of mind, and even if you're saying something nice, to try to bring his spirits up, because you might get swung on or something. Because I don't. If someone came to me in that situation, you're likely to snap, even if you're not a short fuse type of guy. So to me, that was probably not wise, but whatever. It got him some good PR with the people, and they can say how good of a sportsman he is, even though, for all we know, he's probably, you know, cussing him out. We don't know what he said.
That's true. Yeah, he could have said, "Yeah, how about that, you little bitch?"
Exactly.
We don't know. Made it look good though. Well, they did say something too, I guess, about they grew up like an hour away from each other or whatever, so they did have a further connection other than just two guys on the team. But yeah, I did feel bad for him. That was tough to take, and those were the types of possessions, you know, down the stretch for Houston. Just like, wow, it's crazy that's the way it goes down. Speaking of being in disbelief, we were such disbelief the round before there with Duke's, failure to hang on. And then to see Samson's face at the end of that last possession, it's like he was transported to a different atmosphere. Like he didn't even know it was real anymore. And I as a coach, I can't say I wouldn't have reacted the same way. But man, you got to feel so bad in that moment. Like, this is what I made these guys like do. Oh my goodness, that's gotta hurt.
Yeah, I didn't even have the obviously anywhere close to any type of like investment. My face was probably similar. I'm like, what the hell is going on? So yeah, that I'm maybe by tonight they've been able to get some Z's, but I've been that keep you up for a while. That's a tough one to overcome.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, like we said, there obviously some good performances from some players in certain moments and some good stretches, but just felt like those 3 games there was such a letdown for one team to let the other one back into it to win it. You just didn't get that feeling that this was the ultimate way that we wanted to see this thing come to a conclusion. But that's the way it went. And they can. I guess everybody can spin it the way that they want to. Because I certainly saw multiple tweets after the game had finished where people were kind of talking about how bad they thought, quote unquote, the first few rounds went because we didn't have the the buzzer beaters or excitement that we're used to, and then how great they thought the finish was. Where I'm kind of like, well, I don't know. We got a couple good games in here, but I felt like there wasn't a great way to start, and it wasn't a great way to end either. It just wasn't the tournament of my dreams, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess I was kind of like anything was gravy after that. The college basketball crown finishing up there on on Sunday. I was high off the hog there, so everything was good, and I was like, it kind of sucks, but at least. And honestly, I know like it was kind of the fun thing to make fun of and stuff, but I do think it's like a good concept and a good idea of like the money thing's gonna make people want to play and get there because I mean I guess supposedly Nebraska won like $300,000 some dollars. That the team will get. I mean, Gus Johnson only said it every 10 minutes, so it has to be true. But either way, like I do think that they production-wise and stuff like of course, who knows like where that money's going to come from? It's going to keep coming. I know they want to like grow the pot and stuff, and having it in Vegas is a good spot for it. I think, especially when you're talking about throwing that money out there. There's some money to be had with some of those sponsors and some of those get a sports book involved, things like that. But I know Circa was kind of their main. Big promoting sponsor there in town. So, but I mean, it was a cool thing. I think, especially for teams that, I mean, it gives you something to play for at least because you're obviously disappointed you didn't make the big dance, and like why do you want to go to NIT and play? Play at some random, Fordham or something like that. At least you get a trip to Vegas. You maybe win some money, and then whatever else happens. But I mean, I thought it was like a cool experience, and probably. Maybe you do it once, you're like, okay, that's enough of that crap. Let's get to the real thing. But it was still kind of fun to distract from the tournament when you don't necessarily have like a dog in the fight, and made it kind of fun to watch. And they had, I mean, name wise, they had some good recognition there. You had like, Arizona State of Villanova. Boise State was a pretty solid squad this year. So that part of it, they did a good job of at least filling the field out that way.
Yeah, it definitely was interesting. And your guys there with the Hoy ball ended up pulling off the victory there. And I thought that it is kind of a concept that probably changes the way that the rest of the postseason looks. You're right. Maybe those other ones that have been out there don't last anymore because of this. You're going to have to put out some sort of incentive. And we've even talked about this before with football. That's going to be what drives players to stay and play in those games too, is some sort of incentive, NIL wise or school wise, obviously is going to help get them to promote their kids to come, kind of thing. So I think that model definitely is something that is interesting. I didn't know much about it until right when it started, basically.
I don't think you're the only one, because you kept hearing all this stuff like money's going. Well, is it going? Because I think the initial thought was it'd be going to NIL for the school, but then you're like, well, why would I play for something I'm not getting if you're a senior and leaving?
Yeah.
And then Hoiberg had, he's not much of like a, he's pretty, even keel usually, but he had a pretty good line about being pissed off the coaches don't get any of the money. Of course, he said it in jest, but just with the way he talks and stuff, it is really funny.
Yeah.
But so like, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, put some money on the table and let's go get it. And I mean, that's kind of, I guess how a lot of people grew up playing sports or ball. It's like, let's put something on the line and let's go get it.
Yeah. Definitely interesting. And we'll see, I guess, where that goes and how it morphs here over time. And yeah, if it does affect some of the other things that are already out there, it definitely will, I think, be a little bit of a game changer. So that's kind of puts a cap, I guess, and bow on the old college basketball season. That we'll finish up that. As far as our, we did have, of course, some picks out there for you over the weekend. You can look through those back if you'd like. We kind of went, I think, kind of the 50-50 road there for most part. I know I was a little disappointed with that previous round. I had Flag easily went over his 20.5, but then I was looking for Uzan to have a decent game, and he ended up, I think, just a couple points shy where I needed him to get that other player prop. And of course we did okay, I think, with some of the other line stuff. That wasn't too bad over the weekend, but yeah, it was a little bit of a mixed bag as far as the plays were concerned. And we'll see. Of course, we'll have plenty of other stuff to start talking about here. We'll get into a little bit of the other sports that'll have their playoff runs. We'll probably touch a little bit here and there on the NBA and perhaps the NHL as that gets to their postseason time. And of course, then there'll be a lot of off-season talk when it comes to the other sports that we focus on a lot as well. And of course, the fight game's a year-round thing. So SJ, you'll always have some of that to take a look at too.
Yeah, glad you brought that up. There's actually a pretty decent card in Miami this weekend, 314, I believe. So, and then a couple little boxing action too, decent fights out there. So we'll have a few fights up on the tweet machine. So follow along there, and we'll get some plays out for you and get some extra money before the Easter Bunny comes to town.
All right, and just a heads up too as well, we have not officially finished the Parch Madness, so I guess the tournament isn't technically over yet for us. We still got and I'm going to have to, I did make a little bit of an error here. I got things together and put it up there, but then I didn't realize that I had a stupid end time on the thing too soon. So it didn't give people an opportunity to actually make their picks. So I'm going to correct that. We're going to put it back out there for you. We're in the Elite 8 round of the Parch Madness. So we'll get that up there. We'll probably just do it on a couple day runs for each, give folks a chance to vote on them. And then we'll get, hopefully by the time we get to the next show, we at least either have our championship matchup or we've determined so we can talk about it in that show. So keep an eye out on the socials at Cherokee CP, at SGM Bets. We'll have that stuff for you there on Twitter. I'll also put it up on Facebook for folks that are connected with me there as well. And then, of course, we would love if you would like, subscribe, share the podcast, all the major podcast platforms, including our host here at Spotify. And then if you would like, subscribe, get the notification on the YouTube channel so you can get us when we have our picks and plays there as well. Of course, I did intend to have more content for you over the weekend before that championship game, but obviously my little getting the whatever norovirus vid, whatever you want to call it, here over the weekend didn't do me any favors, but that's why we're here to recap here for you after the game today. So we'll of course be pumping more of that stuff out here and there as we see it. We always do some fun stuff too along the ways. I know in the past we've done a little look at when it comes Derby time or things like that. We'll have some other plays in there that'll have some fun with you on the YouTube channel. So make sure you're following there. So I know we've got plenty of fun in store, so keep an eye out with us. That's going to wrap it up here for this time around. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.